Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where every week a few friends get together with their randomly designed and randomly imagined story elements. We combine them together for you, our audience, to have a good time. I'm, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to tell you a story. I had Magic System. What did you guys have?
I had Pantheon.
I had genre.
Well, I think genre should go first.
All right, so the genre is kind of Wild West, but as a little bit of world building. The world is like one giant city, but it's just suffered a collapse several years ago, and so it's like everything is like buildings, greenhouses. Not all of it works, but it's kind of that parts of it have been revived, but it's kind of functioned as, well, the government is back in place and they're sending help out to, the farther reaches that haven't quite completely been online, but we've been able to rig up. And so it's Wild West, but it's, everything is like half empty high rises or
I can definitely see a
greenhouses. Everything is kind of like post, not industrial, but like post, like everything was, well organized, well, like technological, stuff. But it's like running on like half of what it really could be because it's rigged back up, and so everything is kind of, like I said, Wild West, but it's all like half tech. But it's like everyone's carrying a gun and like gunslinging and bandits, or not necessarily bandits, but it's like, the one little bank in the one neighborhood that's back online is, robbed, and so they have to get the sheriff in, and the government has sent out, almost like a Texas Ranger, like a sheriff to watch over different areas, and then like there'll be like a circuit judge that'll come through to run court in the different locations under certain time from what the sheriff is rounded up. And so
cool.
So when you say the Earth is a giant city, or the world that we're on, are there rivers, lakes, oceans?
Like all of it would be, let's say, like man-made. So the entire world has been, let's say, technologically terraformed to fit a kind of like people might be familiar with, like, Saudi Arabia is trying to do that, like, line city.
Right.
Where they're just going to, like, make a river that runs through the middle, and then, like, everything is, like, a nice little train that runs through the whole thing. But imagine if, like, that was just, like, instead of the river rising and flowing, we've just basically sucked up all the water into massive tanks, and we make a river that functions the way we want to. And instead of, being hurt by all the harmful rays, all of our pastures under this regulated like greenhouse section, and then
it's like it's like a million or so years in the future, and every bit of commodity and every bit of resource is currently being processed and used to keep people alive, and in a really kind of abundant way before the collapse.
Yeah, but like all nature basically, like, taken in a direct control to be like, okay, we've not necessarily like maybe GMO kind of stuff, but like everything was very engineered to function exactly.
Right. No, I gotcha.
Like as
like a post-scarcity society, kind of like Star Trek. Everything is well regulated, and because of that, people have a lot. But then maybe they output a lot of their information into machines, so that when things started to break down, people kind of panic, and people are kind of clawing back civilization now.
Yeah.
Cool. Reed, do you want to go next, or should I go next?
Well, I'll go next. I'm a little bit hurled for a loop here. The Pantheon is elemental, which, let's just say, is subdued under current circumstances. The four main forces, if you will, that were elemental to this world, earth, wind, water, and light, have taken on different meanings. In the original context, Earth, the forces associated with Earth were forces for order and kind of at war with wind and water, who were forces of chaos.
Right.
But all three received their power, their energy from light, from, it's in the solar system, it's the sun. So that was the original makeup of the arrangement of forces on this world. But then, of course, these have been, subjected. Let's just say the chaotic forces of wind and water have been subjugated.
Right.
And Earth has practically gone to sleep. And the sunlight that falls on this planet is captured, harnessed, and used and transformed into usable formats. So the original Pantheon has, the inhabitants of this world probably wouldn't think much of them anymore, but that doesn't change the fact that they're still there.
Right. And there's definitely an opportunity for them to make some kind of resurgence as all of the systems that kind of separated them from people's awareness were stopped and are slowly coming back online. Right?
Right.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So, magic system is this. Basically, everyone has a certain amount of energy in their life, right? A certain amount of sort of internal energy that seeps out and it's part of vitality. Um, but that doesn't mean that people who are fit have more of this energy. It just means that sometimes genetically certain people have a lot more of this energy. And this is just like your base elemental energy that keeps people from, like, it's basically doled out as they live. And then when they die, it's used up, right? That's just kind of how it works. So some people say like a person who was really a genius in their youth and then died of a disease. They say, well, their light burned bright, right? And those lights that burn the brightest burn the shortest, you know? And at certain times in history, people have been able to sort of harness this energy as it is coming out of them to do lots of different things. The first time was a general who, in the sort of rage of being betrayed, they say broke the dam, right? He basically, something in him broke and all of his life energy went out at once, right? And he exploded like a nuclear bomb. And that was like one of the earlier signs of this energy. Through the years, people, it's just kind of like a thing everyone has. There are meters to say how much you have. Some people say you'll live longer if you have more. Some people will say we can tell how much you have left. But a class of people who, no surprise, were descendants of this general have developed a thing that they call soul crystals or soul shards. It's a crystalline structure. The creation of it's a secret, but basically it captures the energy as it leaves people, right? And then it captures it as it leaves people, and then you can use it later on to do things, right? You can use it later on to concentrate and make a force, move an object. You can concentrate it to pump into your legs and to jump, right? You can add extra vitality as it leaves. And there has to be basically a hole has to be made in this reservoir, which it's not like it's in your body. It's more like your soul energy is tapping into some other power. But you basically have to have something happen to you. Sometimes it happens to someone when they have a traumatic event. Sometimes it happens to someone when something really joyful happens. Sometimes it happens to someone when they hit puberty. But a hole is broken and a lot more of this energy starts to come out of them. And if it's just kind of coming out, then they tend to live a really short amount of time. But if they have this soul crystal or soul stone or whatever, it is able to capture that energy and they can use it. So people don't, you don't typically, even though they know that everyone has this, everyone doesn't have a soul stone, right? They're hard to make. This making of them is a secret. They're difficult to understand, and they take basically your entire life to figure out how to use. But there have been, I would say, as a world building thing, a recent outcropping because of this disastrous event of people, just normal people who haven't trained, all of a sudden the dam breaking, or all of a sudden the opportunity for power being, because of like the traumatic events, because the world is changing. It's just this shift, this change. And so more and more people are coming up with this kind of power. And I could say that's why we might see bandits, that's why we might see outlaws, that's why we can have a hero, who could tap into this. Um, the reality is the more you use, you're basically bringing your death closer to you, because people believe that each person is given a finite amount, you know. Um, so with it, you can do a lot of things. You can augment yourself. You can augment the things around you, but it takes time to learn how to do that. Most people, don't. Most people don't learn how to do that. Most people have some crazy thing that happens on their deathbed. You know, they might they might cause all, if it's in the winter, they might cause all of the trees around them to bloom, as they die. They might send up a firework. They might, you know, people will sometimes, as they die, there was a guy who, as he died, he wanted to be remembered, and so he like turned to stone, just lots of weird things, but more and more we're seeing children start to express this power, and so people are trying to figure out, the government's trying to figure out, what are we going to do, because before we had our sect of monks and special agents who had this power, but and they travel around the world collecting 10 or 12 people to bring in, but now their ranks are being swollen with people, or swelling with people who have this power and want to learn how to use it, and they're kind of trying to just build back, and I think maybe whatever happened to the world had something to do with this, but that's the magic system.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of our forgotten gods, especially with wind and water being subdued and light being controlled. Earth has obviously made a kind of a subtle resurgence.
Right. Exactly. Do you have any interesting ideas, Seth?
Not. I think I have one little idea, but I'd like to kind of save it to maybe add to something that we get for the next drawing that I think
Okay.
would be something to add. But
Okay.
I'd like to maybe add it into like something new that comes up with
Right. Right.
whatever we might get for next week.
So as we're sitting right now, the there's a city that's the size of the world that was previously very managed and controlled, and has had some terrible thing happen, and now it's kind of a Wild West theme, kind of a small communities trying to make it. The government is sending out like a Texas Ranger type individuals to kind of go in and restore order, and you know sort of maybe figure out what happened, you know
I'm
um
thinking that maybe because if the whole city was a world, this isn't my other idea, but this is maybe something for now.
yeah.
Is that, I mean, if it's like Wild West, if the whole thing was a city, it's going to be scarcely populated to make that work. I think maybe there was some project to try to harness some of this power, and it ended up like zapping really like half the population out.
Right. Oh wow, that'd be terrifying.
Um, I'm kind of thinking of like some of the different scientific people that like in nowadays where they're like, hey, let's like speed up these particle atoms and like slam them together and do all these things. But how do we do this? Well, we have to do it in really secret and underground. Why? Well, I mean, something really bad could happen. But we're gonna do it anyways.
Yeah,
Kind
it
of
could be
idea
something like that. It could also be
where
something where they have learned part of their system is they've learned to harness this, and so everyone kind of pays. That's like the economic system is everyone pays in this power, and somehow a feedback loop was started where it just like sucked the power and just killed millions of people. Maybe they tried to create like a time machine or some sort of device to harness something. Maybe they were making like a Dyson sphere, like a something to go around the sun to harness the sun's power, and it kind of like took all of this. They didn't do they did the calculations, but boy, were they bad at math, you know, sort of thing. I don't know.
That sounds like a cool idea.
Yeah, I think so. So let's pick it up next week and kind of add some stuff into it. I think we have a very good basis here for a great story. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this episode of Wait It Gets Better. If you like this sort of beginning seed story, please let us know at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com or add us on Twitter at @getsbettercast and let us know if you have any cool ideas. You don't have to tell them to us because obviously your ideas are your ideas, but you can just tell us, hey, I've got a cool idea, and just leave it at that. That's fine. Um, if you want to join us next week, I can absolutely say that it will get better. Bye.